Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. My name is Vanta, and welcome back to another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Films. And as you hear, I am not in the best shape of health today. It's pretty cold. I saw on the weather forecast that it's gonna be a storm today? Question mark. I don't know if it's a thunderstorm or snowstorm, but it was kind of drizzling by the time that I got to the studio. So I hope that everybody is staying warm, staying inside, especially if it's because the weather are so extreme nowadays that I really don't know whether or not it's gonna melt me or freeze me whenever I step outside. So I hope that whatever it is, you guys are keeping yourself safe and warm, especially with winter arriving. It's gonna make everything a little bit harder, especially with snow and everything. And I'm not the best with cold. So sometimes if you hear me on the show with a hoarse voice and think that I might be sick, I probably am. But yeah, anyways, regarding that, today I have a rather, I don't know not intimate. Not, well, when I say intimate, I don't mean it in a sexual way. I mean intimate as in a very close and very warm and understanding sort of intimate, if that makes sense, because I want to dive into the topic of grief in films, and not only films but also media, because if you guys didn't know, which I feel like you guys wouldn't know because I didn't tell you guys, but I am in a gaming class this semester, which means that I have to play a game, to write gaming journals, and also to study games and everything like that. Is a very interesting class. I highly recommend. It is a communication class, and basically one of the task that we had to do was to present a game that we either played or we are playing right now to other people in our class. And the game that I chose to present about was this game that was pretty popular when it just got out, called Before Your Eyes. And it is a fantastic game that you guys, if you haven't played it before or haven't even heard of that, I highly recommend giving the game a chance, because it's a fantastic game. It made me cry so much for 20 minutes straight. It was insane. It was all snot and tears and a lot of tissue by the end of that game. So I highly recommend. It's a fantastic game about grief and life and family and love, and it's just so meaningful. And I know that this is a film and cinema channel, right? We talk primarily film. Sometimes we stray and we talk about our lives and example from my life or whatever I observe that could be reflected through films. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about this game, because I think that if you take away all of the component of gaming, so for example how you play it, and obviously instructions, and the fact that you have to download it, you have to pay for it, instead of just sitting back and watch a film where you hit play and you just let it happen before your eyes. But I feel like if you take away all of the gaming component of Before Your Eyes, I genuinely believe that it is a fantastic viewing experience. It has a story, it has characters, obviously, right? Every games are like that, because I truly believe that every media is a form of film. Well, not specifically films that you watch, but every media. Oh wait, no. Let me rephrase that. Actually, I feel like film has the component and the element of every other media, because it has script, which is the component of writing in books. It has images, which is the component in paintings, drawings. It has sounds, component in music. It has interactivity. Some films are interactive, just like games. So I truly believe that while games are not necessary film, it can also be a form of that, because you have so many games that have so many cutscenes. I remember Mortal Kombat was a very famous game that people that I only have the impression that it was just a fighting game. I had no idea that it has a storyline. So imagine my surprise when one day I was watching somebody's walkthrough and there were like cutscenes and everything, and I was like, this is actually really interesting because all of the characters have their own arc and morals, and you have an overall story that is just genuinely really, really cool. So instead of downloading the game and playing for myself, I actually sit through a 3 or 4 hours long cutscenes of the game, just so basically I treat it like a movie. So that was something really, really interesting instead of, playing the game by myself, which is something that I do a lot of time. But again, I just really wanted to recommend this game Before Your Eyes to you guys because I genuinely think that it is an experience that everybody should have at least once in their life. It has a very interesting mechanic where you use your eye movement to control the games. More specifically, every time you blink, you will be taken out of that moment. So basically, the game follows the life of a character, and so literally like from birth to his their old age. And whenever you blink, like in real life, like if you use your eyes and you blink, you are immediately cut to a different scene. So I think that it's such an interesting, first of all, very interesting mechanic that I wanted to play when it first came out. I think in 2019 or 2020. I didn't have any money back then, but now I have some bread. I was able to play it, and it's very meaningful. Like I said, I cried a lot. I showed it to my brother. He also cried, but like I said, it deals with grief in a way that I think if it's not a game, then it's very hard to see it in a film. That's the beauty of game, because with the interactivity, it can achieve stuff that films aren't able to do. And I'm not saying that film, like both of them, one way or another, they can deliver a message more powerful than the other. But just the fact that games are interactive and they bring you into a space that is not real life, but close enough to resemble real life, that you're like, okay, so I am aware that I am in the game, but at the same time, this feels so real that I could genuinely feel I am a part of this game. I am a character in this game. Possibly I could also be myself in this world that is not my world, but in another world. It's very fascinating. I'm sorry. It's just, this is me after like the gaming class, and this is that talking. But I just really want to share that with you guys because I am going to talk about that game in this episode, despite it not being a film. Because the thing is, when I first started this podcast show, my goal is to include media as a whole and not just film. Because I think that there are so many different media in the world that just don't have the appreciation that it needs. And films are obviously so conventional, right? Everybody watch movies, everybody knows of a movie, grow up with a movie, learn about movies and stuff like that. But I feel like I also want to use this space to honor other medias as well because, like I said, film has the component of every other media in it. It is the seventh art form, right? It has every of the other component in it. So it's the perfect sort of cumulation. Guys, my English is not English in today. But it is the perfect fruit of everything that comes before it, which is why I also really want to talk about the game in this episode. And the topic of grief, I feel like it's very heavy, right? Death is something very heavy, something that I myself can't really fathom to grasp. Even though that all of us know that it is inevitable, we can't stop it by any means. We can extend our life, but everything is to a certain point because everything has an end. And the thing is, when we talk about grief, it's a topic that normally we would either shy from it or we just not touch upon it at all. Because why would we? It's a very heavy topic. It's sad. We don't want to think about death, right? We don't want to think about death or be confronted with death in our daily life. It's just not something that you should bring to a party, for example, is a very party pooper. And one of the movie that I wanted to talk about today is called The Farewell. It's a movie from, give me a second, let me check, from 2019. It's directed by Lulu Wang. And it's basically a movie about this Chinese American character that goes back home to China to visit her grandmother who has terminal illness. And I highly recommend you guys to see this film because it's the perfect balance between humor and also that very hard-hitting topic of grief. Because I think I watched this a long time ago, but I still remember a lot of the details because it was I feel like it was a very memorable film. And if you guys haven't watched it, I highly recommend. I will be diving into spoilers, so this is your spoiler alert. I feel like I should return to saying spoiler alert, but at the same time, I also feel like there's this silent understanding that every film I'm going to talk about, I am going to talk about the details in that, so people kind of know that I'm going to be diving into spoiler. But anyways, yeah, so it's I'm going to be talking more detail about this film. So basically, the grandmother that has the illness in the film, she has terminal illness, right? Oh, well, I'll just repeat myself. But one of the details that made me realize this is not just a sad film was the fact that the family members decided to hide this from her. They decided to hide the fact that the grandmother doesn't have that much long to live to the grandmother herself. So it's a very interesting choice. And I think that it's something that a lot of Asian household can somewhat relate to, because I obviously, I'm Asian. I came from a country that is very family oriented. And so we highly value families and people around us. We are very connected in that way. And so this hits really deep, not to mention because of how I relate to that with my own family. And that detail of the family deciding to not tell her, and and the characters are like, well, isn't it better not to lie? And there's goes that juxtaposition, right? Like, why would you keep a sick person from knowing that they're sick? Wouldn't that cause them more distress, not knowing what is wrong with them? But also, why would you tell a sick person that they're sick? Because that's only going to add more stress, and that is going to make their sickness even worse. So that's a very interesting point that we are given in the film. And I think that I don't even know what the correct answer is, because I don't think there is a correct answer. I don't know whether or not it's good to tell a sick person whether or not they're actually sick, because both sides kind of make sense. And I don't know. I personally, if I was sick, I would prefer to know that I would. But for other people, I don't know if I am strong enough to make that decision for them, because it's somebody's health, that's somebody's entire life. It's just a lot, and it deals with grief in a very gentle way. Like I said, it makes a lot of the humor in, it makes a lot of that heavy hitting moments in, like the ending scene. Oh, the ending scene still stuck with me after all of these years watching it. I've watched it like probably 5-6 years ago. And that ending scene is when the main character, who is played by Aquafina, they go back to the States, and their grandmother, and it's the scene where she looks outside of the window at the back of the car. I don't know, I have no idea what it's called, but she looks out the window and see her grandma just standing there alone, waving goodbye to her. And that moment just sticks with me for all of these years, because I cannot because I'm an international student, right? I have seen that moment of, my family just staying in one place, just standing there waving me as I walk away, to the airport and stuff like that. I've seen it many times, and every single time, like, it's just hard. It's a very, very difficult moment, and they did that scene so incredibly well, especially now that the audience know that the grandmother is sick, and probably the next time the main character is going to see her is, I don't know, it's a very, like, we don't know what is going to happen the next time the main character sees her, and that's what makes it so much harder, knowing that fact that probably there will be no next time, maybe. And that's the difficulty of us grieving, of us international student, and also, you know, immigrants grieving people who are already alive, you know, who are still living. Because for so many times that I'm here, I missed out on a lot of, you know, family meetings, big events at home. My cousin just recently got a baby. It was fantastic. Everybody's happy. I wasn't there. But obviously, like, all of my family's members are healthy back home, right? But it just sucks because I don't really know for sure, because I live so far away, and any information I have from them is going to be very later on. Like, I'm not going to be the first person to know something if something, knock on wood, if something truly happens. And so the film, The Farewell, also captures this grief that us immigrants and international students have with people who are still alive and well, in our family, because we have to spend so long and so far away from them that sometimes we just don't know what would happen, or, you know, the next time that we do go home, what is going to change, what's not going to change. And I think that it's such a difficult topic to nail down, but The Farewell did it really well. It hits me really hard because I hate saying goodbye. I hate knowing that sometimes, you know, some goodbyes are forever, and I just have a hard time sort of accepting that. And watching that film, I just feel like it's so difficult to leave your grandmother who is sick, right? That's the premise of the film. And to not tell her that she's sick. She doesn't even know that she's sick. So that's the painful part of that, because while they are quite literally still already grieving a person that is still alive, because the grandmother is alive at this point, but she doesn't know that she doesn't know if she has only a few months, but all of her family members know that she only have a few months. So the moment they got the result, basically they're already grieving the future. And that is such a terrifying thing to think about, because death is supposed to be something that is far away, that we shouldn't think about every day in our life. It's not, because it's going to stress you out. It is so much pressure. It is it is terrifying to think about on a daily basis. But the people in the film, the family members in The Farewell, they are already thinking of that fact. And I just think that it's such a beautiful way to sort of highlight how scary and how important it is that we treasure our family members, or just people that are around us, because obviously, like, we don't know what is going to happen. We don't know, okay? This is what I tell students whenever they ask me about insurance and stuff, because I work in a place where I have to talk with students a lot. And I'm like, go get your insurance, activate it, get to know it, because again, I always tell them, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe you get sick tomorrow and you need insurance. Like, always do stuff, because you don't know what is going to happen. I would hate for any of you guys, or even myself, to grieve a future or something that we know we can have, but we just did not do it. Like, for example, I could have gotten a banana pudding from the Magnolia Bakery, but I didn't get it. And then, for example, tomorrow I found out I have a banana allergy. So I could never have banana pudding ever again. You know, like I'm sorry, I don't know why I have that analogy. I think it's just I was downtown before this, and for a split second I was like, should I get banana pudding from Magnolia? But then I'm like, I had a really big ice cream yesterday that was like 1,000 of calories. So I'm like, maybe not. But I'm just saying, when you are able to do something, you do it. Do not grieve a future that you could have had, but you just didn't do it. Which is also a message from Before Your Eyes, which is a fantastic game, like I said. I don't want to, I'm gonna have to talk about spoiler for the game just a little bit, because there are details that if I don't talk about, I'm not gonna make any sense. Basically, the sort of, well, you know what? I'm just gonna be very vague about it because I still want you guys to enjoy the game. I think it's a fantastic game. Please go play it. Is that life is too short. That's basically the premise of the game. Life is way too short, and you need to use your time to do stuff that you love, because life is too short for you to dwell on the past, or like I said, to grieve on a future that you could have had but you didn't do anything. So after I played that game, I had a very different outlook on life. Genuinely, after that I began to go out more. I began to talk to people more. Go out of my way to make conversation with stranger, even small talk, because I've always wanted to do something like that. And I'm like, why not do it? Like, how much time do I have on this? I genuinely don't know how much time I have on this. We don't know how much time we have on this. I'm sorry, that was really weird. But all I'm saying is, with films and games and media like this that touch upon grief, that touch upon death, their point is not to teach us to fear death or to accept that, one day we're gonna go. All of us is gonna go. Well, I think their point is to show us that with the time that we have here, use it to do stuff that we always want to do. Don't say that we want to do it, but then something stopped you, because if you really genuinely want to do something, you will find a way. Have you seen athletes with amputated legs, and they are still able to run with a cosmetic leg? What is it called? Like a cosmetic leg. If you want something so bad, you are going to find a way. If you're so passionate about something, you are going to find a way. If you are so in love with something, if you want something really bad, you want that job, you want this life that you painted, you want to go out, you want to go to Paris, you want to eat this fantastic, delicious, baked, chocolate cake, you do it, because why not? Life is, and I think that life is, and also another film that I want to point out, Last Holiday, fantastic film. I watched it like a year ago. Sorry, I'm like straight. I'm like all over the place right now with the topics. But Last Holiday is also that film that is teaching us to do everything. Because once Last Holiday is that film where, the sick person knows that they're sick, and rather than being sad and crying about it, they decided to blow every last cent of their money to live the lavish life, or the lavish vacation that they want. And that is a fantastic way to showcase that death is not as scary as we think, but the way that we interact and the way that we deal with death is different. And the parallel between The Last Holiday and The Farewell is that you both have two terminally ill person, but one of them knows about their sickness, the other one doesn't. And so what difference is that, and how does that sort of affect their viewpoint on death? And my answer would probably be kind of different, because the person that knows that they're going to die, they realize that, okay, if I'm going to die and then I know I'm going to die, why would I spend the last days of my life crying and not doing the stuff that I want? Might as well do everything that I'm scared of now. There is no other opportunity. There's no other chance. This is it. And the person that doesn't know that they're gonna die, or like the person that doesn't know the sickness, they're gonna be like, okay, this is another Tuesday. I'm just gonna live my life like I normally do. And, for some people, maybe that's okay. Some people, they don't really need a lavish holiday. They don't really need a vacation. Maybe they just want to enjoy their last few days normally, gently, like a normal, just how they do every day. And that's fair. Both of them are very fair options. But I personally, if I knew that I have a sickness, I would probably be like the character in Last Holiday. And I feel like grief is such a hard topic to talk about, but it's also something that I feel like should be normalized a lot more, because we all experience grief in a lot of different ways, for a lot of different people or objects, or just anything in general. Like, you could lose I just lost my favorite bracelet. It was like $25, and it was stainless steel. It's from this really amazing vintage store, and I love it so much. Lost it in the Halloween party, and I grieve it to this day, because I spent money on it. It's very pretty. I really like it. I think that it's an amazing accessory to have, and now that I don't have it anymore, I grieve it. So grieving could be from the smallest thing to obviously grieving a person. That is the hardest thing to talk about, right? Especially if that person is no longer with us. And I think that it's such a hard thing to illustrate. How do you properly illustrate the pain and the heartbreak and the grief of losing somebody that you love? It's so difficult, because obviously if you see it in media, if you see it in film, you will see characters crying, you will see characters losing their mind and shutting themselves out, and all very common, not symptoms, but all very common stuff that we do when we're grieving somebody that we love. But despite seeing all of that images, you can't still, how do you write this, the actual pain? How do you describe a heartbreak onto paper? It's so difficult. How do you use images to show a heartbreak? Because that is something that you feel personally. And I personally, for me, that's how I feel like grief are so hard to portray on film, because no matter how much you try to illustrate it and showcase it on the big screen, if people don't feel relate to that, because obviously the characters are not people that the audience know. They don't know the characters personally. So how do you portray a character's death that is going to impact the audience, making them feel like the character was somebody that they know? Which is, if we go back, then probably the answer would be to write the character better, right? But at the same time, how do you properly portray, like I said, I keep repeating that, but I feel like it's so difficult, because it's a physical pain that people will go through eventually, or they have gone through. How do you transfer that pain and that physical attribute onto words and onto paper? That is something that I feel like it's so difficult, because I have been wanting to make a short film to honor my grandfather who passed away in 2020. So I want to make a film that honors him, but also that grief is so, how do I showcase how I really feel, how I feel on the inside, how I feel in my heart, in my mind, and stuff like that? How do I um explain that to be like, I can explain to you guys how sad I am, but I can't make you guys feel that emotion. Like, I don't know if I'm making sense, but like, it's basically, I'm just trying to say that it is so incredibly difficult to properly transfer the filmmaker's intention of showcasing grief to the audience. Which is why, like, I always say this, but a character needs to be written well for obviously multitude of reasons, right? If the character is not written well, chances are people are not going to enjoy them. But also, if you write a character that is very well and people love them, their death is going to impact the audience a lot. I have seen a lot of character death that I'm like, okay, well, can we move on? That sounds really rough, but I'm serious. If you have characters that are just there and, you know, all of a sudden they die, for example, when we see extras die, we were like, okay, you know, that's sad. But anyways, you're not gonna have the same reaction to when you see like a main character die. You're gonna be like, oh my god, I can't believe that they just killed the main character. And most of the time you will cry when, you know, main character or somebody who is written really well die. Like I said, with a lot of the medias or films that I enjoy, I tend to cry very easily. And so, especially when a character that I feel so close to, that I think that are so interesting, for example, like the character in Before Your Eyes. First of all, I relate a lot to that character with their love and passion for art, and I was like, okay, wow, I really see myself in this person. And when the ending happens, I was like, this is really heavy. This is it. I start crying like I've never cried before. Like I said, it was just snot and paper. I think I finished an entire packet of tissue paper that night. It was insane. And when you have a character that is so closely related to the audience, chances are when their death happens, they're gonna grieve it like it's a real person. Why? Because the audience sees themselves in there. So basically, they are seeing a part of themselves die. And the thing about fictional characters and death is that we know that these are not real characters, right? We know this. We know that whoever we love on screen, they're not real people. They never exist in the first place. There's just somebody on screen. But why do we cry when they die? Why do we still why do we treat their death like they're a real person? And I think that that's something very beautiful about human beings and our empathy towards other people and other characters, not even if they are fictional. And yeah, I just feel like grief can be beautiful in that sense, because I don't want to say that it's ridiculous to cry over fictional character. I've done that multiple of times. I am in no way or shape to tell people that it's weird to do so. But I think that it's so beautiful in a way that it shows us that we are capable of compassion. We are capable of empathy. We are capable of caring for other people, even though those people are not real. And so when we are capable of caring for people who are only existing on the screen, we are more than capable to care about people in our own life, people who are present right here physically, people who are right next to you and stuff like that. And I think that kind of make me have hope in humanity, that things are going to get better because we are essentially creatures of empathy. I believe that with grief, it shows love. With grief, it shows caring. That one word in WandaVision, where is it Wanda? I think it was either WandaVision or Ultra. Ultra or Age of Ultron. That Vision just goes, grief is love perseverance. And I think that is beautiful because that's exactly what it is, you know, like it's so terrifying to think about death, but also if people grieve you, wouldn't that mean that you are so incredibly loved in your life? Like I feel like that itself is just so poetic in a way that is very obvious, but also we don't talk about it as much. And you know, more of the story that I do believe in living life to the fullest. Do stuff that you like, you know? And also, other than that, take care of yourself, take care of people around you. Um, like I said, grief is a sign of love, a sign of caring. And so it's so beautiful in that way. And I hope that if anything you guys are going to take away from this episode, it's that. And I'm going to cut this week's episode a bit short because, like I said, my voice, I'm not feeling the best. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.